0, 1. Let's get started.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the little program. That's right, Late Night Baltimore. It's almost 11 o'clock here on a Friday night in the big city of Baltimore, Maryland. Tonight, football, some football. And what we're going to do is look at these different podcasts and what they say about their teams. But first, take a trip in the Wayback Machine, and we're going to see this David Letterman clip from long ago, but mentions Baltimore. So, let's see.
Quality checks every day.
Commercials. Nothing.
Which means
Identification. If you don't mind, you can stick around. We'd love to continue this discussion.
This is when you're at your best.
Purina conducts over 100,000 quality
We're
checks
watching it.
every day.
Another commercial, huh?
Which means
All right, let's
And
watch.
station breaks.
Oh, you like the way I do this?
All right, let's start. Because watch this.
Limu Limo at your service. Here to help you save hundreds by customizing your car insurance with Liberty Mutual. Probably should have gone the other way. Only pay for what you need.
Really big. All right, hold on. More commercials.
Honey,
Wait, what?
What?
with COVID-19 in my heart.
You've got a scoop.
Oh, when do kids start talking? I'm not even sure.
Well, judging by your linguistic ability, very late.
David Letterman from a long time ago.
Now we have some photos here. Now this is you as a young man, obviously. What can you tell us about that? Maybe you can, there you are.
Deeply. He was a whole man, and he became part of American history, not just sports history. In a nutshell, that's Jackie Robinson.
What were the circumstances for the meeting that you two became friends?
Well, it happened.
In a sense, but I've just admired your work.
I understand.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. I think I have to go along with that. Yeah.
By the way, you were right.
We're going to find something about Baltimore.
Oh, you mentioned it. I just don't.
According to my mother, I talked at the age of 9 months.
9 months? You think?
That was-
Going fast now.
And this one, I don't. Let me. We'll just
well, that's a serious question.
Yeah.
Deeply. He was a whole man.
for the meeting that you two became.
Stone.
He's talking about Jackie Robinson. That's cool.
And indeed, it was Martin who got P in Mount Kisco. Together with a man, Jackie and I became fast friends. He lived in Robinson.
I have to assume that the people.
The public ever will because they're so imbued with, as a group, although many did understand.
Here we
He was
go.
beset by the most virulent form of interview we ever did on national television was with me, Mazine. He had a we reached Carl Ferrillo, Duke Snow. He said, there he is. It was a trip.
More exciting as a game then than it is now. Do you see teams playing with that kind of spirit these days?
I think so. I think there's a
Here we go.
tendency to using nostalgia to make things greater than they were. I think there are tremendous things happening in sports
Here we go.
today, strikes notwithstanding. I think within the last 2 weeks, we saw
Here
one
we
of the
go.
most remarkable moments I've ever seen in sport, when more than 50,000 people in Baltimore, Maryland, having seen their team lose the pennant to the Milwaukee Brewers, or at least the division championship, stayed and stood and cheered for a man named Earl Weaver, who was retiring as manager. I think it was one of the most touching scenes I've ever witnessed in sport. And Baltimore is an imbued city with its team and with its great inner harbor and a great mayor. Same thing happened last Saturday night in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, with the Pittsburgh Steelers' 50th anniversary dinner. And as the late Vince Lombardi was wont to say, there is love on this team. Speaking of his Green Bay Packers, there was love in that room, strike or no strike.
Yeah.
And there is the same kind of spirit.
Now, you mentioned the strike a couple.
All right, that's talking about Baltimore. We're happy. That's cool. That was in 1982, and he was talking about Baltimore and the things they were trying to do. Still working on those things. The Inner Harbor, not quite. For the ballpark, but the Inner Harbor is not really quite the saving everything in Baltimore. Baltimore saving Baltimore now. Crime's dropping. Good things are happening. All right. that was just a look back. And I would like to share this. It is one of my favorite, Mike Judge. And he's talking about some of the inspiration for Beavis and Butthead and some of the unconscious inspiration for Beavis and Butthead from a show from a David Letterman from long times ago. And let's see. So we go here. And let's watch this a couple of times because it's short.
He would get really happy.
If he stopped it,
yeah.
he would get happy.
He'd get happy by not doing
Here we
drugs. Almost a year after I started doing Beavis and Butthead, something that just occurred to me was I had a next door neighbor in a studio apartment I was living at, and the guy next door to me he was a little nuts, and he was on this medication that if he stopped taking it, he would get really happy.
If he stopped it, he would get happy.
He'd get happy by not doing drugs. And so he stopped taking it, and for I guess it was about a week, he was just laughing. It seemed like 24 hours a day, and he was watching TV the entire time. So he'd laugh at everything. He'd be going, "Charlie the Tuna Man," and I would hear it all night long. So I think that might have.
This is a guy that took his car apart or something?
Yeah. I came down stairs one day, and he was carefully removing the back windshield out of a really nice Nova, 78 Nova, and I said, what are you doing? And he said, now it's like a truck.
All right, that's cool. And now it's time to shift towards some football. And what we're going to do is we're going to go look at podcasts, Locked On Sports podcasts from all over the country. And they give so every team has every team has their own podcast, so we're going to look at them one at a time. Show snipe, as they call it. Let's see. The first is going to be in the NFC. The Arizona Cardinals. Really one of the great teams. Not really. Never been good. Let's see if we can find that. All right. Let's see. Well, they're talking about the defense on display. So let's see if we can't see some of this here. Let's see. Hold on now.
Recently, I didn't even.
Defense will be on full display Saturday night against the Raiders.
Tomorrow night.
Not so much. Let's discuss.
Give this a minute or two.
You are Locked On Cardinals.
Locked
your
On
daily
Cardinals.
Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Cardinals. Wow.
Cardinals, Alex Clancy here. Follow me on Twitter, Clancy's Corner. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen. Free wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Free.
Your team every day. Please go to the YouTube channel. Search Locked On Arizona Cardinals. Hit that subscribe button, man. Turn notifications on. You know the drill. Being every day or
We're getting some numbers.
It's time. I don't know why it's time. I just think it's time. It's Friday. It's time. All signs are pointing to ready. I'll discuss what I mean, kind of leapfrogging what's going on Saturday night, kickstarting next week. I'll discuss. The offense is rinse and repeat tomorrow. Yeah, discuss that in the second segment. The defense is the fun part. I feel like the defense is going to be the fun part to break down, to watch, to analyze, to give opinions on for the entirety of the 2025 season. It's the focal point. And, you know, there's some pushback on that. Well, why is it not the offense? The quarterback's making all the money, and Trey McBride and Marvin Harrison Jr. If it wasn't the focal point, they would have signed more talent on the offense. Not saying the offense needs an exorbitant amount of talent. But they made a conscious decision, Monty Ossenfort, Jonathan Gannon et al., to load up. And they did. So while most of those players aren't playing tomorrow night, the defense will be on display because unlike the offense, the depth for the defense isn't set yet entirely. You know, you've got your the old heads up front, Dalvin Tomlinson and Calais Campbell and Josh Sweat.
He's like 900 years old.
Baron Browning and Xavier Thomas. We've talked about this. Xavier Collins. We've talked about this a lot. But what isn't set yet is in case bleep happens. The contingency plan. That's a great Chris Rock old joke. Shouldn't insurance be called in case bleep? Anyways, I thought that was funny.
Oh, well, okay. What he's saying is that the Cardinals, as it were, the Arizona Cardinals have some depth on offense, but not really much on defense. And I think he's right about that. Okay, that was Locked On Cardinals, and they might be better next year because their quarterback, what's his face? He's been doing Kyle Murray. He's doing much better. All right, let's go to another NFC team. That would be the Atlanta Falcons. See what they're talking about down there in Atlanta. Okay. Yep. Lose the hat and regrow the hair.
Three to 6 months. Your treatment.
Zach Robinson is going to have to earn his paycheck if the Falcons are going to survive without Caleb McGarry.
Caleb McGarry's out.
You are Locked On Falcons, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, everyone, to another illustrious episode of the Locked On Falcons podcast, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast, part of
You're a Falcons
Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And if you do not know me, I'm your very humble host, Aaron Freeman, a.k.a. the Jolly Green Giant, a.k.a. the iron that sharpens the iron, a.k.a. Mr. a.k.a. And I've been covering the Atlanta Falcons for almost 2 decades. Formerly at FalcFans.com, RIP, but still going strong.
Now, let's be fair. If you can dredge up anything to be inspired or talk about when you're talking about the Atlanta Falcons, who have always been both boring and bad, you deserve credit if you're running a show for 20 years or covering for 20 years.
On this podcast, and I thank each and every one of you that goes strong with me as everydayers. That means you make this podcast your very first listen each and every day. And all you got to do to become an everydayer, subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. So, of course, today we are joined by Jarvis Davis of Locked On Sports Atlanta to wrap up this week of activity here in Atlanta. We'll talk about the upcoming Friday night practice squad game against the Dallas Cowboys and which players, are on that roster bubble that can really make their case on Friday night. But obviously, we got to talk about the big news of the week. And no, it's not Jalen Walker and James Pierce and Michael Penix not playing in the preseason game, which, certainly the week started off like that. Felt like that was going to be the biggest story of the week. But, we got the news yesterday, as we discussed here. Caleb McGarry going down with an injury. We got the news that Storm Norton, who the Falcons swing tackle, is going to miss at least the first month of the regular season with an ankle injury. And as we sit here recording this on Thursday afternoon, the latest update we've gotten on Caleb McGarry is that, comes from ESPN's Jeremy Fowler, which is that he'll miss some time. And I'm just like, okay, Jeremy, tell us something that we didn't already know. What does some time mean? But hopefully we'll get a more exact update on the timeline for how much time Caleb McGarry is going to miss in the next 24 hours. But, yesterday I discussed briefly on the podcast some of the schematic adjustments that the Falcons can make to basically kind of tread water at right tackle for the time being until Storm Norton and or Caleb McGarry's return, whichever comes sooner. And we discussed some of those things even more on the Falcons Squad show with myself, Jarvis Davis, and Maria Martin on Thursday. But, Jarvis, for the Locked On Falcons listeners that just, haven't gone around to the Falcons Squad show yet in their listening routine, I'm curious where you sort of lie on sort of that dichotomy of coaches versus GM, right? With the idea of, should the Falcons be focused more on the coaches kind of scheming around this absence for however long they need to do it? Or are you more focused on the general manager being proactive and going out there on the waiver wire, the free agent market, or the trade market to find a fill-in option? Who do you think bears more responsibility to kind of solve this Caleb McGarry size or fill this Caleb McGarry size hole in the Falcons lineup in offense?
For me, it has to be the coaches right now, because here's the thing. Zach Robinson got to earn the paycheck, man. Like, when you talked about, whether it be lining in Kyle Pitts over there to chip or Charlie Warner, over there to chip. Like, it is all about how can I continue to do what we want to do as a foundation for our offense, which is run the football, get the ball to 7 as much as possible. And a lot of times, that is going to be his goal going forward, right? Regardless of how long Caleb McGarry is out, whether he comes back, who knows? He has to be able to figure out a way to run the football.
All right. Don't see the Falcons being that good of a team this year. And with injuries, that's not good. Injury at right tackle. All right, let's go to the AFC and see what they're talking about over there. Up there in Buffalo. All right. No. Number one.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of the Herd Mentality Substack, co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, co-host of the NFL First Read Podcast, and I am your host of Locked On Bills. Want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate y'all being here very, very much. I'd also like to invite you to subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Well, folks, welcome in. We got a lot to cover. The Bills have their preseason finale Saturday night against the Buccaneers, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. And Sean McDermott has shared that Josh Allen will not play, which means he won't play at all this preseason. Let's start there. Is it the right decision? Well, Josh Allen has played in some capacity every preseason so far in his career until this year. What I can tell you about that is that it has not led to consistent week 1 results. Josh Allen playing in the preseason hasn't meant that he's going to play well in week 1, and it's not meant that he's going to play poorly in week 1. Let's go through a little bit of a journey here because the results have been very inconsistent. Now, I think you toss aside the rookie season. So 6 week 1 starts, not including his rookie season to this point. I think he was good 3 times. I think he was bad 3 times. Good against the Rams in 2022, good against the Jets in 2020, and good against the Cardinals last year. Now, it took a
The correct answer there is that that it doesn't matter. Josh Allen does not need to be playing in preseason games. So that answers that. Okay, now let's continue down the line and check out what the damn Panthers are up to. Wait, let me make sure I'm okay. Now we'll look up Panthers. What? All right. Let's see. We want to be locked on the Carolina Panthers, eh? The greatest show on turf. Not. They play somewhere near South Carolina, I think. Yeah, we're not. Awesome.
Taylor Moton is staying home in Carolina, and Adam Thielen may be going back to his home in Minnesota. We'll break it all down right here on Locked On Panthers.
You are Locked On Panthers, your daily Carolina Panthers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Julian Council, talking Carolina Panthers with you every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and yes, of course, Friday, your team every day. That's our motto here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for watching the show right here on YouTube and listening wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, over on Twitter and Blue Sky at Julian Council, because beginning on September 3rd, the weekly Wednesday mailbag is back throughout the entirety of the regular season and the playoffs here on Locked On Panthers. All you got to do is either at me or DM me over on Twitter and Blue Sky at Julian Council to get your questions in for the weekly Wednesday mailbag starting on September 3rd, heading into that week 1 matchup down in Jacksonville. We have an emergency episode because the Panthers are making moves, making news on this Friday afternoon/morning as Taylor Moton has signed an extension to stay in Carolina. And Adam Thielen, his old team, is calling Carolina and asking, what's it going to take to get Adam back home here in Minnesota? We'll talk about that situation a little bit later on here on the show. But let's go ahead and start off by talking about the biggest news of the day, and that is that Taylor Moton, T-Mo, is going to stay here in Carolina. We've talked about this all offseason long, what was going to happen with both him and Ike Ekwonu. Ike in a position where potentially he could get a contract extension after having his 5th-year option exercised back in the spring. Taylor Moton in a position of, will he or won't he be a Carolina Panther again in 2026? And you look at Taylor Moton, he has been the beacon of consistency here in Carolina. He has played in 129 games dating back to 2017 when he came to Carolina. He has started 113 of those games across his 8 seasons as a Panther, and he has only missed 3 games in his career as a Panther. If you go back just to the Iron Man streak, he had not missed an offensive snap, y'all. It's not just he wasn't missing games, he wasn't missing plays. In 76 straight contests, he did not miss a snap until week 5 last year in Chicago, where he suffered that elbow injury and then missed 3 games that season. The only time that he's missed time at all. They have, of course, tried to manage him load management wise throughout training camp this year, but going back to last season, there was a little bit of concerns about his knee. But when you look out, Taylor Moton out there on the field on Sundays.
That's really nice. Taylor Moton. He's going to be a Panther. God bless him. I'm really proud of him. Sure he is. Not sure what position he plays. Let's see. But he's going to be there. All right, let's look at the Bengals. No, we won't do any AFC North teams. We'll do the Bears. The Bears.
So it's always Chicago Bears' final preseason game against the Kansas City Chiefs will give us our first look at some important new faces on the roster. Plus, it's the last chance for some key veterans on the roster bubble.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Bears, and I'm your host, Lauren Cox. I'm here to bring you your daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. You can follow me on Twitter at CoxSports1, and you can follow the podcast at Locked On Bears on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and the Locked On Bears YouTube channel, where you can keep up with all of our video podcasts as well. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And on the show today, we're going to preview the Bears' final preseason game against the Kansas City Chiefs, starting with the starters and what we want to see from that group as they get just a little bit more action before the regular season. But then we'll turn to the debut of some key new faces on the Chicago Bears, not only a new running back, but also a couple of young players who haven't played yet this preseason that should be in line to hopefully make their debut and show us a little bit of what they have, because we just haven't had a chance to see it yet. And it'll also be a big last chance for some players on the roster bubble that might not make the team, but could they impress enough in one final preseason game to sway Ben Johnson, Dennis Allen, and Ryan Poles to keep them around? Well, we'll see what they have in store for us. But as always, we should start with the starters, who we've talked on this podcast before about how I don't necessarily think the starters should be playing in this game, but they are. And so we should be ready for, what we want to see from them. And I think first and foremost, it's all about as smooth of an operation from the starting offense in particular as you could hope for. Like, I think part of why, not solely why, but part of why they're playing in this game is that, at practice this week, there was a little bit more sloppiness in terms of penalties and, guys not getting lined up correctly and false starts and things like that are kind of supposed to be the basic stuff that you would expect at this stage of the process should be a little bit more clean. And so I think Ben Johnson may just want to see them get out there and do it again the way they did against the Buffalo Bills, right? It wasn't a problem against the Bills, and that's kind of why it feels like, why do we need to see it again? But it's an additional opportunity to be out.
Okay, and the answer is it's an incredibly huge mistake to play your starters in a preseason game. All right, that answers that. Okay, let us go to our next team, and that would be your favorites and mine. What are they doing down in Dallas? They got to be up to something.
It's gone.
The Dallas Cowboys play their final preseason game of the year, thank goodness, on Friday. We'll tell you the players that we are excited to watch next.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Landon McCool. You can follow him on Twitter at McCoolBCB. And on today's show, we're going to preview the Cowboys' final preseason game of the year against the Atlanta Falcons. We made it, Landon. Like we're almost done with preseason football. You know my disdain for preseason football, but we're going to talk. Well, we're going to talk.
Well, I thought you were just excited about the third preseason game and getting to watch the third preseason game, which is always so much fun.
No, but there are players out there that we're excited to watch. This game does matter for a lot of these guys fighting to make the 53-man roster, fighting to make practice squads. And that's what I don't want to be too harsh because there's a lot of players that are going to play over the weekend where this will be the last time they ever play football, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's just the truth. But I did want to start with this. How much does this game matter when it comes to evaluation? Like, can somebody who was not on the roster really play their way onto the 53 with a strong performance?
I think it's more just another data point. I mean, we kind of, ascribe this sort of extra importance to it because it's the last preseason game and maybe it's the last impression that you can possibly make on their coaching staff before the decision is made. But, I think as the exercises that we kind of went through the last few days show, for the most part, this team is already kind of pretty well set. And even for those, let's say, was it like 11 names that were or so that are probably that are up for grab? I mean, who knows? It could be more than that. Let's say it's 15, right? Even for those 15 that are kind of up for grabs or in that not so sure zone, the hay is mostly in the barn at this point, and I think that the evaluations that you get from this game are more data points, but they're not like any better data points than, say, the second preseason game or a practice that you saw 2 weeks ago. So I do think that we kind of give it this, this is your last chance kind of a spin to it. But the truth of the matter is this isn't any more important preseason game for these guys than the first or second game.
It's really like a glorified practice that's just televised for everybody to watch. And
Okay. Those guys are smart. I agree with them about the preseason. All right, we did Dallas. Let's see what the old Broncos is doing. AFC West. Nope. Oh, mix.
Arteries to stop.
Broncos starters are going to play. Saints starters are going to play. We'll tell you how Denver can make the 2025 Saints outlook miserable in Saturday's preseason finale here on today's episode, Locked On Broncos.
You are Locked On Broncos, your daily Denver Broncos podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Broncos country? Happy Friday. Welcome into another episode of Locked On Broncos, your daily Denver Broncos podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're excited for Denver's preseason finale on Saturday against the New Orleans Saints, and a lot to break down as the preseason finally comes to a close here. We'll break down everything you need to know about Bo Nix and the starting offense, getting some snaps here against the Saints, who are playing their starters as well. We'll also go through the defensive depth and why they have a chance to audition. And part of that, the keys to victory, will lead to the Broncos making the Saints 2025 outlook a little bit miserable going into the season. I'm Cody Roark, Broncos reporter for Mile High Sports, joined as always by Sarah Benninger, site expert over there, predominantlyorange.com. Thank you to all the everydayers out there in Broncos country for tuning in and making us your first listen, however you choose to do so. And if you're not yet an everydayer, become one. Hit that subscribe or that follow button so you never miss out on what's going on with your favorite team every single day, all year long. Sarah, my friend, one preseason game remains, and there's some excitement in Broncos country because we know that Bo Nix and the starters are expected to get some snaps against the Saints, who are expected to play a handful of their starters in this game under new head coach Kellen Moore. So a lot to break down as we're going to go through our preview here and our offensive players to watch. I feel like we'd be remiss if we didn't open things up with the starters in terms of that. Bo Nix and the Broncos, they're obviously going to get some snaps here. Jaleel McLaughlin should be able to come back and play, obviously, after he and his wife had their first child over the last.
Wow, that's all right. Let's see. Okay. Bo Nix. He's good, right? Okay, now we go.
Detroit Lions podcast.
You know what, folks? Dan Campbell always answers the questions and tells it like it is.
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome. Friday edition, Locked On Lions, Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Matt Derry with you on this, say, Friday, August 22nd into Saturday, August 23rd. We are just less than 24 hours away from the last preseason game. We're going to have real football real soon. As we welcome into Locked On Lions, thanks for making us your first listen and checking us out wherever you get your podcast. Please check us out. Locked On Lions on Instagram, Locked On Lions on TikTok. Yes, videos galore all over social media. Of course, follow me on all social platforms as well. Shout out to our everydayers that are out there. Appreciate all of you that watch or listen to the podcast daily. And that includes our man. He knows who he is, the Harbor Springs Insider. He's got some scoops coming my way very, very soon. Coming up on the program today, Jake Riepma. Some of you have checked out, and we want you all to check it out. The Lions Squad Show. It's brand new, live shows twice a week, including right after games. Lions Squad Show, wherever you get your podcasts, on the Locked On Lions. You can find them on the YouTube channel. Just go to the podcast and you'll see it. Jake Riepma is the host. Bradford Banta, who's been on our show a lot, former Lions player and coach. Natalie Kerwin, who you see on the Pistons games on FanDuel Sports Detroit. They are on the Lions Squad Show. We're going to have Jake on the show today, talk a little bit about his thoughts on this Detroit Lions team. Tomorrow, preseason game number 4, Houston Texans, 1 o'clock. Should be interesting, certainly, at Ford Field. Here's the one thing I'll say about this game. And I have a Graham Glasgow update at the end of the show. I got some other stuff to get to. Here's the one thing I want to bring up about tomorrow. 2 things. Number 1, if there's anybody that is so valuable and so in the plans for this team, like a hardcore starter, a guy that's going to be a major contributor, they have no business playing in this game tomorrow. That includes guys like Isaac Tesla. Tesla has been fantastic this preseason. I'm not playing him tomorrow. I'm not playing in this game. I'm just not happening. No injuries. No, knock on wood, no injuries. All right. That's number 1. So guys like Broderick Martin that need to make the team, Eric Hallett needs to make the team. Some of the backup offense, I wouldn't even play Dan Skipper in this game. Some of the other backup offensive linemen, guys like that, fine. But anybody, I'm holding everybody out of this game. And I'll tell you who else I'm holding out of this game, and that is the guy that is going to be the backup quarterback. I at least think September 7th, when your Leos travel to Green Bay, and that's Kyle Allen. I'm playing Hendon Hooker this entire game. Now, if Hooker gets hurt, Allen can dress. But I'm playing Hooker the entire game to find out what I have with him. And that leads me to my second point, which is, what are they going to do with this roster? And is Hendon Hooker, who's not been good in the preseason, is he locked into at least a third spot? Dan Campbell, before yesterday's joint practice with the Texans, was asked about keeping three quarterbacks. And instead of dancing around it, like most coaches do, this is what aces do. Instead of just pawning it off, saying, we'll wait and we'll make that decision a little bit later on. No, he went into it. Quote, that's exactly what it is from Campbell. If you do that and keep three quarterbacks, you lose depth with the D-line or O-line or a receiver or a defensive back or a linebacker. You get the point. So how important is that relative to other positions? Campbell went on to say, quote, and what's hard is, look, you can call it what you want. When you have a year like we did last year, you get affected a little bit by it. It has an effect on the way you think, and depth. We got to make sure that we have the depth. End quote. I love this. Maybe this has just turned into a Dan Campbell stand show. Dan, maybe it's just become a shill fest for the coach. I love the guy. I love how transparent he is. He didn't have to be this transparent with that answer. They don't know. Today, they don't know. Maybe they do know. I think they want to take a long look at Hooker tomorrow. Yes, I know he was drafted 68th overall. He's a third-round pick. Brad Holmes loves holding on to his draft picks and giving them a chance. There's been guys that he's held on to for quite some time. Jamar.
Well, that sounds good from Dan Campbell. The team has so many troubles with injuries last year. They can't take it. You can get a quarterback. If you're getting your second string quarterback, you don't need a third guy. You can call somebody up later if you get in that situation. You need all the spots you can get. So that's a good choice. All right, who's next? Let's go around. We're still swapping around the country. And we will go now to Houston. Wait. Okay, hold on now. What are they doing over there in Houston? They weren't so bad last year. Wow, does Houston not have a locked on? Hold on. All right, here we go.
Finishing strong ahead. A slow start, but a better finish for the Texans on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. Today's pod is all about finishing strong ahead of Houston's last preseason game with a special guest. He's back.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Better Red Nation, from H-Town to your town, from Houston all the way up to Detroit. Today's episode and every episode is for Texan fans all around. I'm your credential media member, John Hickman, Texans football analyst, and today's show is all about how the Houston Texans wrapped up their last joint practice ahead of Saturday's preseason game. But I'm not alone, ladies and gentlemen. If you're watching, you already see it. If you're listening through the audio podcast, then you'll know right now. 3, 2, 1. Cody Davis is back.
Yeah, what's good, my guy?
It's one of those moments where we've been discussing for a long time, just getting him back on the pod, and what better opportunity, what better way to get him back on the pod than to discuss what happened up in Detroit. As he's covering the Detroit Pistons, he is around football still, so he'll give us his overall thoughts from the joint practice, defensive day, and the standouts as well on the defensive side of the ball. And I think from our reports that we've seen everywhere, Caleb Bullock and Derek Stingley, man, they're going to continue to have their hand in the cookie jar, right? But we'll open up today's show just looking at what was a slow start for the offense, but a better finish for Houston, C.J. Stroud, Nico Collins, and the guys. Cody, as you out there in Detroit, as you've been the last 365 days.
Literally.
First and foremost, man, welcome back to the show that you helped create the foundation for. A lot of people have been asking about you. Welcome back, brother.
Thank you, man. Thank you, man. Look, first and foremost, John, listeners and viewers, hey, this was one of my most excited times to jump on the show. We going to get into training camp, but really quick, I did my notes, sent over a couple of videos, and I text John, hey, I'm setting up, and that's when it hit me. I'm making my return to Locked On Texans. Only for a day, though. Only for a day. John, my brother, you doing awesome work over here, man. Even though I've been gone for literally 365 days, I believe Monday made a full year since I made my full transition out here to Detroit. Man, you doing a good job on the show. All of our colleagues out there in Houston doing a good job, man. I still follow the Texans. By the way, I think I follow the Texans more so than my beloved Saints. Let me just say that. But look, overall, man, it was a day I really felt like I was back at home on the beat of the Houston Texans, even if it was for a day. John, if you allow me to do so, I want to jump right into it. Yes, the offense did have a slow day. However, they got things going. And once they got things going, that's when we really saw that ball moving. And first and foremost, let me just say this. Going into this joint practice against the Lions, man, I was more intrigued on how this offensive line is going to look. Because even though I'm all the way up in Detroit, once again, I still got my eyes, I still got my ears down to the ground of what's going on in Houston. And everyone knows that going into this season, the production of the offensive line is going to be one of, if not the most important attribute for the success of the Houston Texans in 2025. And ladies and gentlemen, look, I am happy to say that I was thoroughly impressed by the way the offensive line looked, especially considering that a guy by the name of Titus Howard is back at right tackle due to an injury. Correct me if I'm wrong. Cam Thomas, correct?
Cam Robinson,
sorry. Because I have been praying that he gets an opportunity to go back to his natural position. Yes, I understand this is a guy who can play almost anywhere on the offensive line for the umpteenth time. Titus Howard is a right tackle, and he showed why during the joint practice against the Detroit Lions, a Detroit Lions team who's definitely going to be top 5 in defense, a Detroit Lions team who literally have arguably, if not their best defensive lineman, and Adrian Hutchinson back on the field after he went down with a devastating leg injury. Look, I was also at Lions practice on Tuesday. Hutchinson already looked like he's in midseason form, and Titus Howard looked really good winning his one-on-one battle against Hutchinson. And let me just say this, don't take it from me, you can also hear what D'Amico Ryans had to say as well.
With our offensive line, I think they handled the front really well. Aiden's such a great player. You talk about explosive, dynamic. For me to see him work back and be out here from what he went through, as tough an injury as he had to go through, it's really cool to see him back out working, and he's still bringing it on the edge. I thought Titus did a really nice job today. And of course, Aiden got him a couple times. Titus got him a couple times, but that's two pros working together. That's football, and I'm pleased with what Titus did today.
I was also pleased with that whole offensive line. Yes, there was a moment where the Lions' defensive front did get after the Houston Texans and did make it a little bit hard at times for the quarterback, but that offensive line.
Well, there's another very optimistic team. Houston, they might be pretty good. They got good quarterbacking. They probably will be one of the better teams, to be fair, in the AFC. Also going to be no Ravens, though. All right. Let's see. Now we go over back to the NFC. See what's going on in Wisconsin, specifically Green Bay. What are they up to down? What are they up to over there? Sure, they're excited.
Pay using Apple Card with Apple Pay.
The best quarterbacks in the league are taking advantage of playing with big personnel, 2 tight ends on the field. It's time for the Green Bay Packers to lean in to that style of play.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you find podcasts, you will find Locked On Packers, the #1 Packers podcast on the internet, and the show for fans who know what happened. They want to know why and how. Thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. Packers, Seahawks, joint practices, and the 2 tight ends, not necessarily on the field together, but the 2 tight ends showcased their ability. It was a big day for Tucker Kraft. It was a big day for Luke Musgrave, including an incredible catch on an unbelievable throw from Malik Willis on a wheel route against not some backups, not some roster fodder, Reek Woolen, like a 6'4", 200-pound absolute maniac athlete and a really good football player. This team has threatened to play big personnel. We've seen them practice it, open a lot of the team periods in training camp this year in those 2 tight end sets, usually with Romeo Doubs and Matthew Golden out there. We're going to talk about the receivers a little bit more later. But the ability that those 2 guys have, and Evan Williams talked about this after practice, and the dynamic elements that they bring, and the fact that they are different players, which I think is crucial in understanding the ways that those 2 could be deployed together. Tucker Kraft's much more your blocker, your inline player, your underneath player, someone who can catch and run guys over, make people miss. And then you've got Luke Musgrave, who is that more vertical threat. Remember what he was in 2023. Some of the plays he was able to make, 3rd down plays. Like the reason I compared him early in his career to Mark Andrews was that was the way that for a lot of Mark Andrews' career, he was being used. It was vertical routes. It was these deep overs. It was runaway routes, seam routes, corners. You have different skill sets that allows you to not feel like, okay, there's one offense for one guy and one for the other, or that they're out there doing the same things. And so why do you need both? If they were both similar players, it would be somewhat redundant to have them on the same field at the same time. Because if you think about the best receiver or tight end duos or whatever it is, but receivers or tight ends, You need to have complementary skill sets. And these two unequivocally have that. Now, the Packers last year, Jordan Love didn't do this very much. The Packers did not play in 12 personnel very much at all to throw the ball. Jordan Love was a bottom half of the league in terms of starters in attempts. In fact, had fewer attempts than guys who weren't even preferred starters. He had fewer attempts out of 12 than Gardner Minshew. Had fewer attempts with 2 tight ends on the field than Spencer Rattler. That just, for the amount of talent that those two guys have, and I understand Luke Musgrave dealt with injuries, but that just, for a team that runs the ball as much as the Packers do, that doesn't make any sense. Now, you're not going to get in the gun and run or pass the ball with 2 tight ends on the field. Just probably not what you're going to do. Now, if you want to split Luke Musgrave out, play him as a big slot, you can do that. You want to get into 12 and get into, empty, you could do that. We've seen teams do that. In fact, if you look at, and I did, the top quarterbacks in the league and how often they are playing out of 12 personnel. Since Jordan Love became the starter, do you know who leads the league in pass attempts with 2 tight ends on the field? It's not someone that has 2 great tight ends on his team. Someone who has 1 great tight end on his team. Patrick Mahomes.
Well, I like the 2 tight end set for most teams. I think it works. And I think that I'm all for it. Because you can run out of it. All right. Let's go to Indianapolis Colts. Don't see that they'll be any good. All right. Let's go.
Everyone. She makes me proud. Boston has always been in the battle for freedom and for our future. Mayor Wu has vision. She's always there for the working folks.
Indianapolis Colts pass catchers Josh Downs and Tyler Warren are set to feast with Daniel Jones this season. Let's get to it.
Daniel Jones.
You are Locked On Colts, your daily Indianapolis Colts podcast.
Really?
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you all for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. This is your daily podcast covering your Indianapolis Colts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is right around the corner, so visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets right now. Hello, everyone. My name is Zach Hicks, your resident film nerd of HorseshoeHuddle.com, and my partner Jake Arthur is our credentialed boots on the ground for the site. Yes, you guys on audio just had to hear that instead of actually seeing what Jake was doing. So I'm sorry to all of you guys.
Just a big wet kiss to everybody out there.
Today, guys, we are still dealing with the fallout of the Daniel Jones decision to start this season. So today we're going to deal with the winners. And this isn't just the winners in the pass catching room. It's just the overall macro winners of this decision. We're going to talk about the losers. And then Jake and I are going to talk about who we think could lead this Colts team in receiving this year. We actually haven't talked about this before the show, so we're going to really just have a live conversation, maybe debate about who we think could lead this team in receiving this upcoming season. So stay tuned for that at the end of the show. But Jake, I think the biggest winner in all of this that we really have to talk about is Josh Downs. And it's not that Josh Downs didn't have rapport with Anthony Richardson. It's just for like a slot receiver, he was very much a vertical threat with Anthony Richardson because everybody was with Anthony Richardson.
Well, I don't want to be negative, but Daniel Jones is your starting. God bless you. Hope he does well. Don't see that he could. But you never know. All right, so the Colts are going to start with Daniel Jones. Okay, let's check out your Los Angeles Rams.
Your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Ramley, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Rams, your daily podcast covering your Los Angeles Rams. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're also available over on YouTube, so if you haven't yet, do us a huge favor. Join the party, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. Everyday viewers, you want to support the show every day, hit the like button, drop a comment. Podcast listeners, write us a review, and we will read it on the show, especially the positive ones. So definitely go and do that. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. Covered LA sports for over a decade, 24/7 sports, Bleacher Report, SI, Dodgers Nation. And as always, I'm joined by the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers. You can follow him on X at Travis Rogers. Of course, Travis is entering his 11th season covering your Los Angeles Rams. Also hosts the Travis DeMarco Show on ESPN Radio, which is amazing. It's a essential listening for all LA sports fans. You're going to a new time slot, right?
Yeah, 3 to 6 starting on September 2nd.
3 to 6 starting September 2nd. So lock in. This is the time here to get into LA sports. And on today's episode, we are talking Matthew Stafford. He breaks his silence for the first time, discusses the injury, discusses the process and where he's at right now, how confident he is to start the season. Also, we're going to look at some of these roster locks, who's on the bubble, and the importance of preseason. Is it overrated, underrated? Are you sick of it? I'm pretty sure you want the season to start by now. But first, today's episode of Locked On Rams brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now. So, Travis, I know you'll appreciate this. Matthew Stafford goes to the podium. He knows that reporters have been waiting for weeks to hear from this man. And he says, oh, I know what you're waiting for, to hear me talk about my injury where I have a paper cut from opening the mail. So just go for it. And a reporter actually asked him about it. So you got to love that, right? Just out of the gates, kind of pop the balloon of tension there.
Yeah, it's funny. He's got a good personality. He's been around a long time. We know he's going to be, tough and competitive when he goes out there, so you can have a little fun with it. It's funny. I was talking with some of the other guys from Locked On. We did a little NFC West preview, and the topic the entire time, whether we were talking with Peacock from San Francisco or talking with Clancy from Phoenix or talking with Corbin Smith from Seattle, all they wanted to know about DMAC was Matthew Stafford and whether or not he's really healthy, whether or not this is a ruse, whether or not this was a long-term play to just give him some time off because he doesn't need to practice because he knows what's up, or whether or not he really is dealing with a back issue that may affect his season. And the fact of the matter is, I don't know. I don't think Sean McVay knows for sure. I don't think Matthew Stafford could really give you 100% answer. So we're all kind of waiting to hear from him about what it is, but he can say whatever he wants. He can say everything's fine. He can say he's a work in progress. He can make a joke about a paper cut. It really doesn't matter. What matters is September 7th against the Houston Texans. And when we see him move, does he look like the best version of Matthew Stafford that we've seen for the last several years here in Los Angeles? The guy that scared Philadelphia to death in the postseason last year, the guy that's a Super Bowl champion? Or is he going to look like a 37-year-old guy with a bad back? We just don't know, because they don't play anybody in the preseason. He really hasn't practiced. Even at practice, you can only glean so much from that. So it is the question in the division, maybe the conference, maybe in the league, of whether he's healthy or not. And we're not going to know for sure until September 7th.
And that's the date that just everyone's talking about. We keep saying again and again on this show. And usually you say that date because you're excited that that's when the season begins. Football is back. Now, when I think of September 7th, I'm almost thinking, oh, man, it's like creeping up. It's too close. I want it to be like September 21st. I want Matthew Stafford to be fully healthy. And I kind of look at it as, look, he's been a full participant every single day. So he practiced one day, went home, went to sleep, came back, and felt good enough to practice a second day. Yeah. And he stacked those days. I feel better from.
Well, Matthew Stafford is smart not to play in preseasons. He knows all the plays. I think he's okay. I think the Rams are really getting a lot of play this year as being the Super Bowl team. I don't see how they're beat Philadelphia, but God bless them. Yeah. Unless Matthew Stafford really is hurt, then they're really in for a long season. All right. We're moving right along. To your Jacksonville Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is, in fact, your team every day. We thank you for making us your first listen here on Locked On Jaguars. I am Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast that you can find wherever you get your podcast. Just make sure wherever you watch or listen, you tap into that location so you do not miss an episode. Shout out to the everydayers who join us every single day, which is why we call them everydayers. If you're new here, we don't discriminate, man. Come on in and hang out. You can be an everydayer. All you got to do is just come back, right? That's it.
That's right.
Give you a reason to, too. I'm going to tell you today what I'm talking about. And I'm doing this because I have been a credentialed member of the media for 2 decades, and I have my finger on the pulse of this team. And that's why I think I can kind of set the temperature for you like a thermostat and tell you exactly where it's hot and cold. And I'm going to do that here. We're going to end up talking about going to make them wait. That means the starters won't play in the last preseason game against the Dolphins Saturday. So you got to wait to see what they're going to be able to do when the year starts. Liam Cohen has his doubters. Those doubters exist because of the person I'm going to talk to in segment 1, and that is Trevor Lawrence. Can Trevor Lawrence quiet the critics? I did not put a question mark on it. I said he can quiet the critics, and I think he will. So Liam Cohen, the Liam Cohen aspect of this, he's catching shrapnel here from some people, Bill Simmons and a whole bunch of more folks. He's going to catch shrapnel. They're going to question his acumen as a coach, even though they just saw Dave Canales do the same thing and end up going up to Carolina and getting the best out of Bryce Young. Folks hate on Trevor, and this is why we're talking today. It might not be the same people. It might not be. But there are a group of people that blow everything out of proportion from a praise standpoint before things even happen, calling the dude the prince that was promised and sunshine and all of these things, and give him the ball and get out of the way. And he's a generational quarterback. He's going to change everything. He's great, 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 great. And then when things don't go according to plan, like he didn't come into the league and do what Jaden Daniels did. He didn't come in the league and even do what C.J. Stroud did his first year, although Stroud has taken a little bit of a step back. But they then jump on you and go total opposite the other way. Oh, he's awful. He's terrible. Without using a whole bunch of nuance and context. That's what you're here for today. I ain't normally the dude that you refer to when you think about nuance, but I am a big context guy, right? Nuance may not be my strong suit. My strong suit may just be being raw and telling people how it is. So I'm going to be raw today and tell you, I wish they would shut their damn mouth. All of these bloviating people that are telling you about what Trevor Lawrence has or hasn't done, I can honestly tell you they probably have not watched a full Jaguars game that was not on national TV. I know for a fact they weren't watching when the Jaguars had things rolling prior to him getting hurt on a Monday night game against the Cincinnati Bengals. I know for a fact they weren't watching when Trevor Lawrence had a team that was 2-7 or 2-6, and they finished 9-8, or they were 2-7, finished 9-8, and made a comeback from a game they were down 27-0, albeit because he threw 4 interceptions in the first half. And then he rallied the team past one of their darlings in Justin Herbert. Now, I don't want to slam Justin Herbert or throw shrapnel at him because I think he's going to be okay too. But it's just that I have a hard time with people that beat up on folks when they're low-hanging fruit, but praise them to death before they ever really do anything. And most of the time, I think this is the reason. Because with all of that praise and all of those things that you said, now if it doesn't go according to the way you thought it was going to go or the way that you used all of the hyperbole to get your little clicks and your ratings up, then you have to come back and go the other way to try to save face. Well, see, if you never put that face on in the first place, that won't be nothing to say. All right. So that's why I honestly tell people, I ain't telling you just to listen to Locked On Jaguars, but I do think that this is a pretty good place for you to come for your Jaguars coverage. I say go local, period. Go local. Because 9 times out of 10, somebody covering the team that's local has gone through all of the stuff that you've gone through. People say you ain't kicked the same dirt. We ain't stomped on the same concrete. No, Jaguar media from local media and fans, no, we have gone through this together. And by this, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The up and down, mostly down, the ebb and flow nature of the Jacksonville Jaguars that has been disappointing. In the pantheon of things that have disappointed you as a Jaguar fan over the last 25 years, Trevor Lawrence don't even rank in the top 20. And y'all know it, and we know it. So sometimes can that blind you also because you accept mediocrity because, whoo, boy, mediocrity is something that we ain't never seen. We just want to get our head above water. Of course it can. But I think we are, and for the use of this word for the third time, I think we are all more nuanced than that to fall for that BS. I honestly believe what is happening with Jaguar fans is we're just trying to walk before we crawl. And every time we start to walk and get upright, we fall back off the bike, right? We've seen it.
All right, I will say about this, that guy's, what is it? That's the best podcast. Tony Wiggins, Locked On Jaguars, is the best one of these. He made some good points. Justin Herbert is a media darling. Everybody thinks he's so great. I haven't seen it. He's not bad, but he's not great. They want him to be great. Trevor Lawrence is, well, he was the first pick in the draft with a lot of expectations and on a bad team. And but he's better than he's given credit. I would say he's a better quarterback than Justin Herbert. If I had a choice between the two, and also the other odd thing about that podcast was the guy said, "I'm going to say this word for the third time, nuanced," and that was the first time that he actually used the word. So, but Tony Wiggins, I mean, if you gotta listen to Jacksonville stuff, I guess that's where I would go. Although I'm not sure why you would have to, but all right then. We keep on going. We're keeping on going. Let's go see the team I like the least in the league. I'm not sure exactly why, but I always have not liked this team. I continue to not like them.
help. They're going to throw millions and millions of dollars at us. They're going to do whatever it takes to defeat.
Yes.
All eyes on Mad Max Brosmer tonight. Vikings QB makes his case for the QB3 job in Tennessee. Final score tonight, 23-13. Breaking it all down next on the Vikings Squad Show. But first, let's meet the crew.
Ron Johnson, former Gophers and NFL wide receiver, and my guy Max Brosmer did not disappoint.
I'm Luke Braun of Locked On Vikings. I would not say that Brett was ripping it.
Skol! It's the Viking Squad, sponsored by Game Time. Everything Minnesota Vikings, every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from the land of 10,000 lakes, the way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. It's time to gear up. The Viking Squad Show starts now.
What's going on back in the lab? Back at it. Another Vikings Squad Show immediately after the Vikings' final preseason game in Tennessee, 23-13. That was your final. We're providing you with all the instant reaction, including a Mad Max Brosmer. He pled his case to make the final 53-man roster. More positional battles taking place. Cornerback room, very fluid right now. Running back 3 job. And did anyone win a return job tonight as well? I got to know that. It's all happening right here on the Locked On Sports Minnesota Network. Your team every day. Remember, you can always find this show on audio if you want to listen, right on the Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast feed, and of course on video up on the Locked On Sports Minnesota YouTube channel as well. Make sure you like and subscribe. Keep up with all the action. So close to 10,000 subscribers, by the way. Before we get into all that, quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to us by Monarch Money. Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL from monarchmoney.com. 50% off your first year. Ron, I want to kick it off with you, as we always do, first dibs. It was only 6 days ago, Max Brosmer marched the Vikings all the way down the 2-minute drill, got them into striking distance. We all remember how that turned out. But this week, it felt like, okay, it's your last chance to kind of put your stamp on this QB3 job. And, I mean, he looked the part again, did he not? Big-time throws downfield. Timing, rhythm, accuracy. It just looked the part of a capable backup in the NFL. And then capping it off with that long touchdown pass to Bryson Nesbitt as well. It just kind of felt like maybe this is the nail in the coffin for Brett Rippon, did it not?
You're muted, Ron.
I think the nail in the coffin might have already been nailed before this game. The fact that Max Brosmer started over Rippon. I think the coaches had had their idea and their plan. Max Brosmer just did what he's supposed to do, though. He went out there, he looked efficient, he threw the ball well. That 4th and 4 call by Wes Phillips, my goodness. I don't know if that was Wes Phillips or that was a player, because we saw Josh Metellus calling defense. I don't know if maybe they turned it over to TJ Hawkinson. I don't know if there's an offensive guy other than Jets that they would let call offensive plays, but 4th and 4 to run a slot fade. That was super, super aggressive and ballsy. But Max Brosmer, you could see right away when the play was called, he kind of saw that there was going to be some type of man blitz. He knew he had man covered to.
All right. Vikings, it's enough about them. Don't like them. They really are not. I don't think they're going to be any good, but that's me. You got quarterback issues. All right. We continue. Who's next? Let's go to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Not the Jaguars. No. We already did them. Kansas City Chiefs. Chiefs. Okay. Don't like them either. I like them. They might have a drop. Kansas City Chiefs. Oh, this is going to be good. This is going to be short and sweet. Got this here. All right.
City trades Sky Moore to the San Francisco 49ers for a swap of 6th and 7th round picks in 2027. That is the news that is breaking as of this moment right now. Kansas City is trading their former 2nd round pick wide receiver that wasn't making this roster to a team that is decimated with injuries and just got dealt another issue at the wide receiver position with DeMarcus Robinson going to be suspended for the first 3 games of the season. Kansas City moves on from Sky Moore. This is a move that is not really too surprising for Kansas City considering he was not making this roster. But it is a move that I'm a little surprised happened because I didn't think that somebody would be trading something to get Sky Moore. His 88-yard punt return touchdown probably got him a new gig in San Francisco. Much more coming on Locked On Chiefs later.
All right, that's good. Sky Moore. Great Sky Moore is no longer with the Chiefs. Oh, they'll be fine. Them damn Chiefs are always fine. Everybody knows. Where are we going now? We are going to the New Orleans Saints. We are really getting some progress here. Like and subscribe, would you? It's not easy stealing all these people's content or borrowing it, as they say. That's kind of easy. But please.
And yet for you on today's episode of Locked On Saints.
You are Locked On Saints, your daily New Orleans Saints podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, Who Dat Nation and Who Dat family? I am your host, your friend, Ross Jackson, New Orleans native, your New Orleans Saints expert and credentialed member of the media covering those New Orleans Saints as a Saints beat writer over at LouisianaSports.net. And on today's episode of Locked On Saints, we'll go through my 53-man roster prediction, our final before the final preseason game, where the defense has impressed with its talent. Its offense gets shaken up after the acquisition of Devon Vele, and we're going to kick everything off with the New Orleans Saints entering the most pivotal point of their offseason and the way that they're handling it, which I think is the right way to go. We got all that coming up for you on today's episode. We appreciate you very much, as always, for making us your first listen and being an everydayer here on the show, which is a proud part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The New Orleans Saints have announced that starters will play up against the Denver Broncos on Saturday in the team's final preseason game. And with that, the starting quarterback will be Spencer Rattler, with Tyler Shuck and Jake Haener to follow in that order. This is the most pivotal point of the New Orleans Saints off season. This is the opportunity, finally, for everyone to be able to see, in a bit of a dress rehearsal format, the starters that are healthy and available going up against some starters that are healthy and available. Sean Payton said that he expects that some of the Denver Broncos starters to go as well on Saturday. So this gives New Orleans the long last opportunity to get to see their starters go up against another team starters in full-blown, full-contact tackle football to close out this preseason. And as a part of that, finally be able to make what they believe will be the right choice at starting quarterback. We're going to talk about starting quarterback now because I think that's going to be the next big piece here, but there will be some pieces that are going to be missing no matter what during that preseason game. We'll highlight that in a second as well. I think that the New Orleans Saints might be trending towards naming Spencer Rattler their starting quarterback. I didn't think that they would do it. I thought that he was the right choice, but I didn't think that the New Orleans Saints were going to end up going in that direction. I thought very much that this organization was going to go to its new asset in Tyler Shuck. I don't think that would be a bad decision. Just thought that that's kind of the way that they would head with the investment in him. Second round pick does not mean that he has to be a week 1 starter. Second round pick does not mean that he has to hit the field during the first season, although I'm sure that he will, especially as the Saints look at another opportunity to potentially add another quarterback in the 2026 draft class. You got to see what you're going to get in terms of the best out of both of these players. Spencer Rattler seems more there right now in terms of what he can.
All right, that's good. They got their quarterback. Never heard of him. Can't believe he's good, but he might be. Spencer Rattler. Better than Tyler Shuck. Don't know any of them. All right, now we're continuing on with our broadcast. We're going to take a little break now, and we're going to play check in on our favorite night spot watering hole as to it is the elbow room. What are they doing down in the elbow room in Fort Lauderdale? All right, they are happening, man. Look at all these people are smiling. Happy. Never seen such happiness. These girls are drinking. Dan is playing. This girl, she came all the way back from the 1980s. Prince video. Hey, my Lord, look at all this happiness. I just can't believe it. This guy's chatting this girl. Look, he's holding a mixed drink and he's got his beer. Oh, she's leaning in. And smiling. Oh, they're all having a good time here at the old elbow. Yeah, my Lord. Look at that, 1987 Prince music video. All right, there's Kevin Smith, the director, sitting there wondering what's going on. You just gotta go to the elbow room. Put that on your bucket list. Look at that. Oh, here's a Dolphins fan. Kevin Smith, the director, is a Dolphins fan. Hey there. Wonderful. All right, we're going to continue on. Unreal, this place. Unreal. All right, that's the elbow room live stream. And the elbow room is soon going to offer audio. If you pay, you can hear what's going on. Hear the band. All right, where were we? Oh, yeah, we're not so far. We're almost done, really. We got Giants, okay, let's do the Raiders. All right, we are going to check in on the Las Vegas Raiders. What the hell are they doing there?
Ready to lose the hat and regrow the hair? With Choose by Hims, you can regain your hair and your...
Raiders tight end Brock Bowers receives an incredible honor after his record-breaking rookie year. How much better can Brock and this Raiders offense be in 2025? That plus more on Friday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for August 22nd, 2025.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. Definitely appreciate you. If you're catching the show wherever you find your favorite podcast or you're checking us out by way of the YouTube page, you know we appreciate both. Show continues to grow each and every day because of your consistent support and the great job that my man Ari does behind the scenes, making sure we look good and sound good each and every day, again, by way of the Locked On Raider podcast YouTube page. So shout out to Ari. Great job as always. He's on Twitter at Ari Produces. You can hit me up as well at your boy Q254. And if you want to be a part of the show, as many of you do, we got the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line for you at 707-654-4693. Got a ton of calls and texts. I'll try to get through as many as possible coming up in segment number 3 as we close out the show and close out the week. Again, a lot of feedback. I do appreciate all of it. I'll try to hustle through as much as possible as we close things out. Segment number 2, I want to take a look at preseason game number 3 as the preseason's getting wrapped up for the Silver and Black and all teams across the league, and really focus in on who this game is going to be most important for, who really needs to step up and show their worth as well. The final 53-man roster will come to a conclusion pretty quickly. They'll come to a decision on their 53-man roster by Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific time. So a lot of positions are already signed, sealed, and delivered. Can there be a couple more positions that are accounted for coming up on Saturday? We'll talk about that in segment number 2. Here in segment number 1, news and notes of the day. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. And the day on Thursday started with the notification from the NFL that Brock Bowers, after his rookie year, record-breaking rookie year, was voted number 24 in the NFL top 100. And you could say, okay, so what's the big deal on that? Well, he's already considered a top 25 player in the league, and it's amongst the peers, right? The tight end comes in at number 24, but he was voted on by his colleagues. So that, to me, is a big deal. Number 1 tight end in the National Football League. Again, not voted on by me, not voted on by you, voted on by his colleagues. So that is a really big deal. He was named a Pro Bowler and AP first-team All-Pro after leading all tight ends in receptions with 112, receiving yards with 1,194 yards, and yards after catch with 596 in 2024. And remember, he had Gardner Minshew, Aiden O'Connell, Desmond Ridder throwing him the rock. So basically, he had very inconsistent QB play. And the best quarterback throwing on the ball was Aiden O'Connell. But remember, when he got in the game, he got injured pretty early as well. So he had a lot of Gardner Minshew and even had Desmond Ridder, but he was still able to break multiple NFL records, including the most receptions by a rookie in a single season and the most receiving yards by a rookie tight end. So again, number 1 tight end in the top 100 after 1 year. So you would have
All right, so Brock Bowers, it's the number 1. Well, you can't go much on those season statistic records because, it was like 5 years ago that they started the 17 games. So you got an extra game, but still, if you're the top vote getter for tight ends in the NFL by the players, and you've been a rookie and point taking on the inconsistent quarterbacks he's had, I would say that is very impressive. Brock Bowers, very impressive tight end. So they got the Raiders got that. The Raiders, they got that going for them. No, well done. Well, kudos to them. All right, now where are we? We're getting there. We did the Giants. We got the Giants. Okay. We didn't do the Jets yet, I don't think. No. New York Giants. We went to New York Giants. Locked On Giants. Well, let's see what they say here.
super efficient. So this
Sliding practice for Jackson on Sunday.
Yeah, got the wind knocked out of him. He's good. Yeah, I would like him to slide on that.
7 points in 3 preseason games.
I'm sorry.
7 points in 3 preseason games. How pleased are you with just that scoring one?
Well, I think just the effort of the guys is what we're really focused on, the discipline, their team first attitude, their work ethic, big things, the accountability to one another, to the coaches, to the players. Again, it's a process of training camp to the preseason games and being able to execute, regardless of who's in there. There's a standard that, I'm going to hold everybody to. And, we got
preseason game
17 days here before the first one. So we got a lot of work still to get done.
Brian, in college, Jackson's aggressiveness when running with the ball was a note when he was coming out of college. We've seen him dive a decent amount in practice, kind of aggressive again in the Bills game, and now this one. I mean, how do you coach it out of him? How do you balance it? You don't want to take it away, but also need to be safe. How do you find that?
Yeah, I wouldn't coach it out of him. There's just certain times that you got to make the right decision. I would say in this particular game is probably a good time to slide, the third preseason game. Every situation is different. I've had different quarterbacks that can run and are pretty productive running the football. There's a time and a place. You'd like to take as few hits as you can, but I like Jackson's competitiveness, his toughness. We got to make the right decision. Those are split-second decisions, Connor. So, I trust him. I trust the guys that I've been around, our guys. I trust them to do the right thing, but I'll never take his competitiveness away.
Is it harder to decide in the split second whether they go down, whether they go up, to decide when's the right time, when's not?
Yeah, I think that's probably a good question for Jackson and those guys that do it. Things happen in a split second in this league. Certainly don't want to take any unnecessary hits.
Your plan to take him out at that point, though, just to no matter whether he took that hit or not, was it your plan?
I'm sorry.
Was it your plan for him to only play that to that point in the game and then go to Jameis, or would you have put Jackson back in if he had not taken the hit?
No, Jameis was up, and then Tommy was just going to play in the second half.
What do you think of Tommy's play?
I thought all the quarterbacks played well. Thought they played well all preseason. Thought they played well all training camp. Decisive, quick, good decision making. We threw that pick down there in the end.
Well, my what I would say on this is, why is your quarterback in there? Yes, you should slide Jackson as the quarterback. The question is, why is he in there at this point? All right, then. We will now go to see what they're doing, since we're in New York. Same stadium, same New Jersey. We will go look at the Jets, see what they're doing. No.
Just seen right there is me using our late.
Two recent trades for defensive tackles mean one thing for this Jets preseason finale. Everybody should feel like their job is on the line. Locked On Jets begins now.
You are Locked On Jets, your daily New York Jets podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome. This is the Locked On Jets podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It is Friday, August 22nd, 2025, and I'm your host, John B. from GangGreenNation.com. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen or first watch every day, and a big shout out to you everydayers. This is a daily podcast covering the New York Jets with new episodes each day through the week, Monday through Friday. Today, we are going to preview the final preseason game of 2025. The Jets will play the Philadelphia Eagles tonight. Kickoff time scheduled for 7:30 from MetLife Stadium. The final Jets game before the real games begin in 2025. And the Jets have made some moves to shake up their roster this week, particularly on the defensive line. They made 2 trades to bring in defensive tackles. In comes Harrison Phillips from Minnesota. The Jets acquired him on Wednesday. The Jets also acquired Juwan Briggs on Wednesday from the Cleveland Browns, a move which remakes their defensive tackle room within just a couple of hours. And that really shakes up the battle for the roster on the defensive line. But there were also reports that the Jets are, quote unquote, monitoring the trade market for wide receivers. Now, on yesterday's show, I questioned what monitoring the trade market means, but I think that we can surmise that the Jets are going to look for upgrades at the wide receiver position. And there are clear, tangible impacts on these pieces of news for the guys on the roster right now. At the defensive tackle spot, there are now 2 less roster spots available than there were 48 hours ago. There are now 2 guys who are going to be cut who were on the verge of making the team 48 hours ago. So this is a dangerous time for defensive tackles on this team right now. And outside of Quinn and Williams and the guys they just traded for, I guess, because you're not going to trade for Harrison Phillips and then cut him. And I don't think you're going to trade for Juwan Briggs and then cut him. Phillips, of the 2, is the one with the more decorated career. Harrison Phillips has been in the NFL for a long time. He's been the starter in this league. I think they just brought him in to be the starter next to Quinn and Williams. Briggs has a far lesser track record. He was a 7th-round pick a year ago. He played just over 100 snaps for Cleveland. And clearly he was on the verge of being cut by Cleveland if they were willing to trade him at this time of year for a late-round pick swap. But the fact the Jets traded for him, the fact the Jets did not wait for the waiver wire suggests that he's going to be on the team, which means that Derek Nandi, and there's been a lot of buzz about Derek Nandi not making this team lately. When the Jets signed him this offseason from Kansas City, the thought was that he was going to be a big part of the defensive tackle rotation. But all the buzz has been that he's been playing himself off the team. Now, Byron Cowart apparently has been banged up lately. Another guy the Jets signed this offseason, another veteran defensive tackle. But I think it sounds like he might be heading to IR.
Well, heart's got to go out to Jets fans. When you're saying that everyone is playing for their job in the 3rd preseason game, all positions playing for their job, you are not optimistic about the coming season. And if you're a Jets fan, you haven't had reason to be optimistic for about 5 decades now. So God bless it all. But march on. We go on. We keep going. That's what we do here in the National Football League. We're always hopeful. All right, now we are coming down to let's do the Eagles. Now the Eagles, there's a team with should be optimistic. They're probably the best team in the league, maybe besides our beloved Ravens, of course. But Eagles Super Bowl seems maybe might happen. I used to listen to what is it? WIPN? Is that what it was? PIN? Sports station. I used to listen to it a couple years back. They're the best sports talk. When I listened to sports talk radio, they were the best. And that's better than right here. And that's saying better than any Baltimore. All right.
Now,
Yeah.
The Philadelphia Eagles conclude the 2025 preseason tonight against the New York Jets. The Watch Guide coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Welcome in, Eagles fans, to this Friday edition of the show. I'm your host, Louis DiBiase. The Eagles conclude the preseason tonight, as they have tended to do pretty much the majority of our lives as Eagles fans, against the New York Jets. Like, they stopped that for a couple years, but the Eagles-Jets finale in the preseason is something that we've all grown accustomed to, and that will take place tonight. And there are some things still to watch, although the final preseason game is the one normally people kind of ignore and I don't want to say overlook, but sometimes just choose not to watch it. We know the starters never play in this game, especially with the current era of Eagles football where starters almost never play in the preseason. There is still a good amount to watch in today's game. So coming up on today's edition of the show, I do have a watch guide for you sickos out there that are going to watch this game from start to finish. Eagles-Jets tonight kickoff is at 7:30. 3 players to watch on offense, 3 players to watch on defense, because although this isn't that important for the starters, this game does mean a lot to the bottom of this roster. There's a lot of guys still fighting for a chance to make this 53-man roster. Even if they don't make the Eagles, this is a chance for a lot of these guys to continue their dream and stay in the NFL. If they impress, even if they don't do enough, like a running back of this football team, like Montrell Johnson tonight or Shunderick Powell, they have a very slim to none chance to make the roster, at least in Philadelphia, in my opinion, but a great game can help them catch on with another football team. So this game does mean a lot to a lot of players on this roster, and so I tend to not overlook it and kind of ignore it like maybe some others do. On the offensive side of the football, there's a lot of players actually that I'm super intrigued by, not just for the short term, but for the long term. Like the main guys that I'm watching today are up front. Like I am watching the Eagles' young offensive linemen, specifically 3 rookie tackles. I'm watching Miles Hinton, I'm watching Cameron Williams, and I'm watching Holland Pierce. Those 3 rookie tackles are who I'm watching pretty much more than maybe anybody on both sides of the football, because I think when you add up all 4 rookie offensive linemen the Eagles either drafted or brought in as undrafted, rookie free agents, there's only one that is a lock to make this team, and I think that's Drew Kendall. I think Kendall showed that not only is he a versatile piece that can play both guard, he played some left guard last week in practice. He's also a really good center prospect. That's what he played at Boston College. He's also your primary center backup right now, in my opinion. If Cam Jurgens were to get injured, it's not Landon Dickerson when he's healthy kicking back over to center. No, Drew Kendall, I think, is your backup.
All right, that's enough for them. The Eagles are the best team. The Ravens got to beat them in the Super Bowl, and I think that's what's going to be the Super Bowl. The Eagles are the best team, the champs until they're not. So we give them the credit. The team's got to come on the field. That's when you win the games, the championship, the Super Bowl. In Palo Alto this year. Or in this season. The Eagles are the dominant team. They have depth. They have a great defense. They have one of the best lines, defensive lines and offensive lines, and an underrated quarterback. So they're a team to be feared, as always. They're the world champs. They are the favorites in the NFC, barring injury or another team stepping up. So they deserve credit. The radio station was WIP Sports, and I guess 94. They were the sports talk state. They still are, I suppose. Haven't listened in a while, but they were a great late night sports talk radio station. If you were a fan of that genre or are. Okay. Now we shall continue. We are really coming in here. We're not going to do the Dolphins. We will do the Dolphins at another time, and all the teams in the AFC North separately. But let us go now to our San Francisco 49ers. All right. Yeah.
Yes, there are more injuries for the San Francisco 49ers. Injury report going into preseason week 3 and which players have the most to gain on the roster bubble this weekend before roster cutdowns for 2025 on today's Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker at BD Peacock, at Coach Crocky. Thanks, everybody, for making this your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Love and appreciate all the everydayers out there. Thanks for hanging with us. Our core audience wouldn't be here without you. And if you're new to the program, welcome. We appreciate you as well. Stick around. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube or wherever you are listening to this podcast. And we're getting ready for the final tune-up preseason week number 3. Don't know how many starters, not very many of them going to be out there for the San Francisco 49ers, but there still is a lot to watch and a lot to gain for numerous players on the roster that are trying to make the football team. We're going to talk about some of those players and who we're most excited to see, who might have the most to gain or lose potentially in this preseason finale. But first, Croc, we got another bit of injury news, and this might have had something to do with the trade for Sky Moore as well, because Russell Gage now, who's been one of the better wide receivers in training camp that has been healthy for the 49ers, now he has come up with an injury, and it's an MCL sprain, and it's not a bad one. Again, luckily, a lot of these injuries aren't catastrophic injuries, but, puts his week 1 in question, and it might start to affect who's the roster and who doesn't. And so 10 days or so is the prognosis for the MCL sprain for now Russell Gage. But the good news there at wide receiver is the guy they added in Sky Moore is now back on the roster for the San Francisco 49ers and already on the practice field doing some 11-on-11 work in day number 1. So he immediately got into town and got to work to make room for him, though, Croc. Guess what? Somebody had to go on to IR for that to happen. And apparently there's been an injury for Trey Brown, cornerback Trey Brown. And that's it. Like that, poof, his season is over. He was thought to be the number 3 corner coming into the year, and he's not going to be playing at all for the 49ers this year. He is going on injured reserve now, which kind of muddies the picture, which probably is something we're going to have to bring up about the DBs and the cornerback depth that might be fighting for that final roster spot on the 53 for the San Francisco 49ers. So there we go. That is the injury report for today, at least the major stuff for today, Croc. Oh, and by the way, Nate Sudfeld, hardly knew you. I don't know what the 49ers saw that they didn't like. So they released Nate Sudfeld and then brought back Tanner Mordecai, who's already been cut and signed 3 times this offseason now for the 49ers this summer. So Tanner Mordecai is back to play in the preseason finale for the 49ers. It's wild turn of events for the 49ers here with the injuries and who's on the roster and who's not. A little frenetic with the quarterback movement, though. So, did maybe they didn't try him out, and then he showed up and couldn't pass the physical, and they're like, oh, wait a second, this isn't the dude we saw in 2022.
No, I think that would be noted if there was anything with the, the physical and him not being able to pass that. I think the biggest thing there with some of these injuries and whatnot is, just yesterday, and well, actually people probably listened to it this morning, you listen to us and we're talking about, oh yeah, well, the 49ers, they may be fine. Russell Gage, he's going to be the guy that, is going to make the roster. He's going to be that veteran guy that is going to kind of help Brock Purdy as some of these younger guys get healthier and get Brandon Ayuk back. And I guess the 49ers, I don't want to say they can't have nice things, but man, they just want this to be very difficult for them to start the season. It's like playing Madden on like Hall of Fame level when everyone else is playing on like rookie. Like that's what's going. They're like, you know what? Now let's turn these sliders up only for Kyle Shanahan and make him have to deal with a plethora of injuries, really to every position. It's really unfortunate. And again, we're looking for Brock Purdy to be able to like kind of develop this continuity with like a group of guys that he's just going to be playing with. You think back to the old days, and Steve Young just knew like, all right, Jerry Rice, J.J. Stokes, and Terrell Owens. Like, I just have these guys, And from week to week now, day to day, we don't know who the hell Brock Purdy's going to be throwing to. So I think, even before we get to the quarterback stuff and all that, it's just really unfortunate that the 49ers can't really get into any groove with the receiver group.
And by the way, I want to get the phrasing correct according to Matt Mayoko. The 49ers terminated the contract of Nate Sudfeld. So I don't know how that's different from just flat out releasing a guy or cutting a guy, or did they not even finalize the deal? I don't know how that works, but his contract was terminated. So there you go.
All right. Well, the 49ers are worried about injuries, so that means they are in big trouble. Also, contract terminated is terrifying, and 49ers injuries. Overrated coach, and they can't afford injuries. No team can. All right, we are heading into the stretch. We now have about 4 teams left. We're not doing Dolphins, and we're not doing the Ravens, and we're not doing any team in the AFC North. And we're not talking about, we'll give an update on the so-called injury of Lamar Jackson. But we will now check in. What are they? What in the hell are they doing?
The next dime has changed our game.
It makes you want to sing.
The clarity and performance out of Nexodine is immediately noticed upon plugging it in.
Ready to lose the hat and regrow the hair?
Nope.
With Sprays by Hims, you can regain your hair and your confidence.
From the first unit to the second unit to playing a lot in the final preseason game. The curious case of Keon White. That's where we start on this episode of Locked On Patriots.
You are Locked On Patriots, your daily New England Patriots podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Patriots fans? I'm your host, Nick Cattles, born and raised in New England, also host of the Everything Pats podcast, co-host of the Greg Bedard Patriots podcast with Nick Cattles, and a sports talk show host, veteran. On today's episode, a surprisingly good night for one vet fighting for a job, and a former first-round pick gets his butt whooped. But first, Keon White plays a ton, and we get some clarity at left guard and center. We appreciate you joining the show, making us your first listen, and for being an everydayer. The Locked On Patriots podcast, a proud partner, the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The third preseason game matters. It matters for 5, 6, 7, maybe even as many as 10 guys on the roster. Who's going to make it? Who's going to get cut? It might not be the most important game to watch as a fan, but the game ultimately matters. And during this game, between the Giants and the Patriots, which obviously ended up in the Giants' favor, shellacking the Pats. We learned several things during this game. And let's start with Keion White. At the beginning of camp, Keion White looked like he was going to have a breakout season. Like he was going to be one of the truly impactful defensive players in 2025. That the move from Mayo and Covington to Vrabel and Williams was the move that Keion White needed. And then all of a sudden, the past couple of weeks, Keion White, his impact, it grew quiet. Not many plays being made, more questions being asked. And then as we got ready for the third and final preseason game, we saw first Keion White starting to lose snaps at practice to Calebon Chason on that first unit. And then we saw during Tuesday's practice, Chason completely leapfrog White. And it was Chason on the first unit, White on the second unit. Then you get into the third and final preseason game. And Keion White is not only dressed. Keion White is dressed and he's playing. And Keion White not only played, but he played into late in the second quarter. He played a lot of snaps. And it's kind of an interesting decline for White. Because not only is it obvious he's no longer going to be on that top defensive unit, we now start to wonder how far has he fallen? And it's a legitimate question. And when you're watching the game, he's playing late into the second quarter, and he's not making a ton of plays against the Giants' 2s and 3s. Now, earlier in the game, he had back-to-back snaps where he drew a holding penalty, and then he had a
All right. First, my condolences, my sympathies for this fellow, having spent his entire life in New England. Can't think of anything more unpleasant. Second of all, his name is Nick Cattles. I wonder if he's just one of the herd. Okay, that was a cheap joke. And third, Mike Vrabel is a good choice for them. He will be an improvement. I think he'll do well for the Patriots this year as a coach. I think they'll be well coached. But, you don't have the talent. You don't got the talent, you don't got the talent, eh? All right, now let's do an update. The update on Lamar. According to the news sources that I found, Lamar is considered fine after suffering an injury scare during the Ravens practice on Wednesday when his foot was stepped on by a teammate. X-rays confirmed no damage, though he was sore and missed Thursday practice. According to Coach Harbaugh confirmed Jackson is fine and going to be good. He was knocked to the ground during practice, and somebody stepped on his foot. X-rays were negative for any damage. So, that's all good news for the Ravens. Yeah, can't be stepping on his foot, though. All right, now we have the Buccaneers, the Titans, and the Commanders to go. And then, wait, the Seahawks. Where's Seahawks? All right, Seahawks. Let us check on the Seahawks. What is going on in Seattle?
It's not 2012 all over again. Don't be looking for Russell Wilson 2.0, but all eyes will still be on Jalen Milroe playing the entirety of Seattle's preseason finale in Green Bay. What should fans be watching from the dazzling number 6? We'll be breaking it all down here on our Blue Friday edition of Locked On Seahawks.
You are Locked On Seahawks, your daily Seattle Seahawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, 12. This is Corbin Smith, host of the Locked On Seahawks podcast, your daily Seahawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Glad to be joined here on our Blue Friday show by my co-host Nick Lee, and a special thanks to all the 12s who are listening in, whether you're down in Tumwater, Washington, or you are listening in Fort Worth, Texas. We greatly appreciate each and every one of you for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. Seattle set to wrap up its preseason docket in Green Bay tomorrow. Lambeau Field facing off against the Packers. Won't be seeing any starters in this game, but still plenty of players that have a lot to play for, both looking at roster spots and the practice squad. We'll be looking at Jalen Milroe's first full game as a Seahawks quarterback and what to expect on that front, other key storylines, and playing a spirited game of what's the odds. Without further ado, let's get to it. Now for your lead story here on our Blue Friday edition of Locked On Seahawks. Back in 2012, there was a certain third-round pick by the name of Russell Wilson that came into the preseason for the Seahawks behind Matt Flynn, who had been given big money in free agency by the Seahawks. Russell Wilson ended up beating him out with a dazzling preseason. There's still plenty of fans out there that are having pictures like that in their head when it comes to Jalen Milroe. I'm going to tell you right now that is absolutely not going to happen. The Seahawks, there's a reason that Drew Lock and Sam Darnold are not going to be playing in this preseason finale. Those guys are clearly the number 1 and number 2 quarterbacks, and Jalen Milroe is clearly the number 3. He needs the experience. He needs the snaps. Now, could Jalen Milroe do what Russell Wilson did in preseason games and go out here against Green Bay and just absolutely light it up? Oh, yeah. It's definitely possible that he could do that. We could see Jalen Milroe go out there throwing the ball all over the place. We could see him running around everybody, racking up a bunch of scores, both with his arm and his leg, especially with Green Bay not likely to play many, if any, of their starters either. This is an opportunity to see what this dual threat quarterback can do. But I think really at the end of the day, I'm not even looking at stats for Jalen Milroe, Nick. I'm looking at the way that he carries.
All right, that's enough of that. Seattle's going to have some difficulties. They're always out there. Kind of forget all about them. They're out there in the far, far reaches. But hopefully they're a good team. I mean, hopefully for them. All right. Let's continue. We have the Buccaneers, the Commanders, and the Titans remaining. And then we got to wrap this program up. Let's see, where are we at? Okay. All right, let us look up Buccaneers.
Best mayor in.
No pup list for Godwin or Wirfs to start the season, but they'll both still likely miss at least 4 games. That and more on today's episode of Locked On Bucs.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome into this episode of Locked On Bucs, your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank you for making Locked On Bucks your first listen or view every day. Don't forget you can subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, you can follow along on Twitter. I am James Yarko at JYarko_Bucks, credentialed member of the media covering your Tampa Bay Buccaneers, here with you 5 days a week along with the everydayers. And for that, I want to share my appreciation for your continued support of the show. One of the ways you can support the show is become a Locked On Bucks insider. You're going to get news, rumors, updates, general thoughts, one-on-one conversations with me via text message. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucks or click the link in the show notes to become an insider today. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now. No starters this weekend to finish out the preseason. More on that coming up in a little bit. Going to start off today with the news that Chris Godwin and Tristan Wirfs will both begin the season on the active roster and not the PUP list. Todd Bowles talked to the media about it on Thursday and said, quote, speaking about Godwin, he's taken off the PUP list, but he's got to get into football shape and everything else. I wouldn't expect him to play early on. Bowles was also asked about a timetable and went on to say, quote, just when he's ready. He's been out a long time. He's got to get into football shape. Tristan is the same way, but they'll be off, and then we'll see how it goes going forward, end quote. So if they're both still expected to not be back until at least October, probably missing the first 4 games, why use up roster spots that could be allocated to other players like Trey Palmer or Ryan Miller or some of these other bubble players? That's a question that I received from more than a few insiders when I sent out the text about these guys being on the 53-man roster.
All right, that's enough for Bucks. Don't like them. Don't care for them. All right, let us continue. We now have another team. They might be surprising, or they might fall back. They're the great Commanders. The Washington Commanders.
Try what you want.
All right.
The Commanders' chaotic situation-heavy final practice was the perfect pressure test for Jaden Daniels and for this team as we near the final preseason game of 2025. That and more right now on Locked On Commanders.
You are Locked On Commanders, your daily podcast on the Washington Commanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Commanders. I'm David Harrison, your guy on the ground covering the Washington Commanders for WUSA 9, right here with you 5 days a week. You can also find me writing about the Commanders for Sports Illustrated's CommanderGameDay.com. And you can follow me on X at DHarrison82. I want to thank you for making Locked On Commanders your first listen or view. And a special thank you goes out to all of the everydayers, those of you who come through for every single episode. Everybody out there, if you haven't already, please make sure you are subscribed for free on YouTube or wherever you're listening to today's episode. And if it's your first time here, welcome to the show. Hope you like what you hear and you come back for more again real soon. Coming up on today's episode, safety Quan Martin isn't just a starter, he's a leader. And Frankie Luvu stops by the show for the first time this training camp. But first, we start by talking about a pretty unique practice session that went down on Thursday in Ashburn at the BigBear.ai Performance Center, now newly named. All that coming up on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Winning time was the theme for Thursday. Padded practice. It's supposed to be the day that we were supposed to have the joint practice with the Baltimore Ravens, between the Washington Commanders and the Baltimore Ravens, I should say. Obviously, that didn't happen as the two teams agreed mutually, quote unquote, to cancel the joint practice. But the Washington Commanders still put on the pads, still went out there to get some work done. Jaden Daniels showed today that he can make the perfect throw under pressure, or reminded us, I guess, that he made the perfect throw under pressure, even if he rightfully gets frustrated sometimes when his teammates don't hold up their end of the bargain. The final training camp practice of the year was different. Unique is the way that Dan Quinn put it, called it a quote-unquote unique practice format, and did not disappoint. Certainly was a unique practice format, and I'm glad he kind of gave us a little bit of a warning, because he had it. If he hadn't, probably would have been a little bit confusing to watch what was going on the field. It sometimes is anyway, because we don't have the script, so we don't know exactly what is going on, exactly what the point of the current session is. But given a little bit of a descriptor before practice, Dan Quinn saying the focus was entirely on situational football and those quote-unquote winning time moments that we hear him talk about so often. Quinn also noted that the team had 13 one-score games last season and over 20 instances where they found themselves in a 2-minute drill, either at the end of the half or at the end of the game. So today was about pressure testing the team against the clock with NFL officials present. So an added bonus there for the practice. And from my perspective, it certainly looked a little bit hectic, which is a little bit more unique. At one point, the offense ran one play from their own 35-yard line, completed a play to get to the 44-yard line, and then the very next play came from a 2-point conversion with the second team offense going up against the first team defense. So like so again, without the warning, it would have been a really confusing situation where you see the team start with the ball in 35, they get it to the 44, and the next thing you know, we're 2-point conversion with Sam Hartman and second team offense. And it's just like, where are we going here? What are we doing? But that was kind of the point. You're going to hear Frankie Louvu kind of touch on it here in just a little bit, where it's about stress, right? So you go on the field and you're thinking as a team, okay, we're 35-yard line. We're trying to get in a field goal range. We get to the 44-yard line. Boom, all of a sudden we're in a 2-point conversion. Hey, get out there and execute your job. No notice, short notice, those kinds of things. Ramp up the pressure as much as you can. Kind of simulate that pressure as best you can without actually having a game situation. I think it was really cool to watch. Certainly kept your head on a swivel as a media member. If you didn't pay attention, you were going to get lost in the sauce real quick. So really fun way to end training camp there by Dan Quinn and his staff. Jaden Daniels had a little bit of a roller coaster day. For the most part, he himself, perfectly fine. But there were some other issues that kind of caused a little bit of a roller coaster, quote unquote, day. Jaden saw a lot of work, high leverage scenarios. First team getting a lot of reps on Thursday in pads. Not that you expected the starters to play on Saturday anyway, right? But pretty much indicates the starters are not going to play on Saturday. So some of the high notes that we have from the practice, Jaden threw an absolute dime to wide receiver Deebo Samuel. I'm telling you right now, if you're worried about the connection, I don't think you need to be worried about it. You might see a little bit of early season, I don't say rust, but like early season kind of getting in the sync and getting into rhythm and all that stuff. But these two guys are connecting very, very well. A perfectly placed dime, a pass that fell right between safety Quan Martin and cornerback Mikey Saintersill for the completion. Really, the only spot that ball could have gone where neither DB could make a play on is exactly where Jaden put that ball.
Well, the upshot of that, Jaden Daniels is really good. And the Commanders might do really well. One thing I would advise is not having these slogans, because coaches with these slogans, like it's winning time, it really doesn't end well. You got to do it on the field and not so much thinking about slogans. That's just my 2 cents on that. And now this episode is coming to an end, and we will end here. Our final team is the Tennessee Titans. What? Yeah. Here we go. Let us check into the Titans. But the Titans are going to be entertaining. I mean, the Commanders, and I hope they get up and get themselves a new stadium. I'm not sure how that's going, but I hope who doesn't mess with it. Old loudmouth himself. All right. This is the last Titans Locked On Titans. Titans, yeah.
To my iPhone, so it's all. Cam Ward passed his final preseason test with flying colors, and we're going to break it all down on a live edition of Locked On Titans.
Cam Ward.
You are Locked On Titans, your daily Tennessee Titans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Titans podcast. I am your host, Tyler Rowland. Titans fans, on today's show, we are going to break down everything you need to know coming out of the Tennessee Titans' final preseason game against the Minnesota Vikings. We're going to talk about Cam Ward. It started a little rough, but I thought he passed the final test with flying colors. We're also going to talk about how some of these roster spots are starting to take focus. Van Jefferson went nuts, but we got some clarity on the offensive line. Also on defense, we're seeing things kind of come into focus as well. So before I get into everything you need to know from the Tennessee Titans final preseason game of the year, do want to thank you for making Locked On Titans your first listen each and every day. Remember, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. Make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day here on the Locked On Titans podcast. Speaking of every day, shout out to my everydayers out there tuning in Monday through Friday. Couldn't do it without you guys. If you aren't an everydayer, you need to be one. The season is literally 2 weeks away. I'm going to have you covered on all the conversations, all the news, all the film that you can handle here on the Locked On Titans podcast. So make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day. With that being said, Cam Ward passed the final test, in my opinion, with flying colors. The statistics don't look mind-blowing when you look at all these other rookie quarterbacks who are getting to play multiple quarters and things like that. Cam Ward's stats aren't going to look like that because he's being treated as a starting quarterback. But we got some points up on the board, which is something that I was asking for when we talked about our preview episode. I wanted to see the first-team offense put some points up on the board, and they got a touchdown there on that second drive. Cam Ward goes 13 plays, all the way down the field, super long drive, methodical, love seeing that. On the preseason overall, 10 for 19, 145 yards. And again, I know that the stat sheet doesn't look absolutely incredible, but what you wanted to see from Cam Ward, he gave you. No penalties for the offense while he was out there. I love that. Really love that and really asked for that. A clean game to progress in that way. The Titans have had some penalties here and there when Cam Ward has been out there in preseason. Now they're able to kind of put that past them, be a much cleaner operation, improving as they should as the weeks go on. But you talk about Cam Ward individually, we get the great completion on the sideline to Van Jefferson, the 17-yard gain. And I know Van Jefferson had one a lot longer than that down the sideline. But with Cam Ward, he gets the completion to Van Jefferson on the sideline. We get the side-on throw to Alec Iomanner near the goal line that's almost a touchdown and sets up the touchdown on the very next play. So I feel like why the stats aren't gaudy for Cam Ward, once again, you look at the preseason as a whole, and Cam Ward did everything that we wanted him to do, right? Think about from the moment Cam Ward has been drafted, he's passed the test. Cam Ward has checked every single box that you want him to check at every single step of the way, whether it be the rookie minicamp, whether it be the offseason mandatory minicamp, voluntary program work, whether it be early training camp, whether it be
All right, so Cam Ward. Cam Ward is really impressing down there. A rookie quarterback, and he sounds like he's going to be an interesting player to watch this year. Can't wait to see him. Now, don't go saying he's passing all the tests and checking all the boxes until they play for real, when the regular season starts. We'll see. But seems like an intriguing player to watch. Okay. Now, before we end, we will check one last time in on the elbow room at 111. What are they doing at the God-forsaken elbow room? It's a wonderful elbow room. There's no place like it. Look at it. This place. All right, here we go. Let's check in on our elbow room because this is incredible. What a place. Look how happy they are. Smiling, enjoying themselves. The doors are open. The girl from the 80s Prince videos, she's sitting, she's happy. This girl's happy. Do they know they're on, that the whole world is watching? You can hear live for $2.99. That's really great. Okay. Now, we know that our slogan is FMAGA here, and we will end after that moment of enjoyment. Elbow room. Now we get an AI to read all these lips. That would be interesting. All right. Okay, so FMAGA. You know, I have to apologize for ever saying anything negative about, old loudmouth, the orange Fuhrer. I always thought, when he was a younger man, he read vociferously. Very interested in literature. So let's check that. Hold on.
Well, I have a number of favorites.
Who are your favorite authors?
Well, I have a number of favorite authors. I think Tom Wolfe is excellent.
Did you read Vanity of the Bonfires?
I did not.
It's a phenomenal book.
What book are you reading now?
Well, I'm reading,
Bonfire of the Vanities.
I'm reading my own book again because I think it's so fantastic, Tom.
What's the best book you've read beside Art of the Deal?
I really like Tom Wolfe's last book, and I think he's a great author. He's done a beautiful job.
Which book?
His current book. His current book. It's just out.
Bonfire of the Vanities.
Yes, and the man has done a very, very good job. And I really can't hear with this earphone, by the way.
Oh, that really does. That really did portend to the future. He lied, just name dropped something he heard, and then he pretended that he didn't hear it. Then he didn't know what he was talking about. Sad. All right, then. That's the end of the show. We hope you enjoyed We're going to come back with some more serious football, not just perusing the various podcasts. And we will say good night or good morning. And that was really enjoyed. Okay. So everybody, enjoy this night. And we will see you on the next episode. F MAGA. And good night from Baltimore.